Adventure Time has its fair share of strange characters who appear once and are never explained, but you see, Giuseppe has always felt a little different, because hidden inside his only episode is a poem from a father who believes he failed to protect his daughter. And while the Ice King reads it, we see a blue-skinned man who looks almost exactly like a younger Giuseppe, which makes the Giuseppe we actually meet even stranger. He's a silent old man a group of wizards decided to pick up on the side of the road. He never speaks, he barely reacts to anything, and eventually just gets left behind because Ice King wants some crab apples. But then he returns, and he saves the entire group using magic that none of them could perform, and then disappears into the forest. So we have an ordinary father on one side, and a nameless, impossibly powerful wizard on the other. And the real mystery is what happened in between. And the tragedy may be that his daughter wasn't the only thing he lost. Because when Giuseppe first appears, nobody seems to know anything about him. Not even the people sitting beside him on the bus. In fact, Abracadaniel admits this.
I don't know. We just picked him up. That's the kind of trip this is gonna be.
Then Ice King just stares at him for a second and decides that his name is gonna be Giuseppe. So right away, the name in that title probably isn't even his real name. It's a nickname that the Ice King came up with about 5 seconds after meeting him. And this is pretty funny in the moment, especially because Giuseppe responds by farting, but it also means that the episode introduces him as a person who has already lost every normal marker of who he used to be. Nobody knows his name, nobody knows where he came from, he has almost no clothing, he doesn't even talk. Even the wizards, who probably are used to seeing these bizarre creatures all over Ooo, have absolutely zero idea about what they picked up. Then Ron James explains why everyone is on this trip to begin with.
We're heading for Big Butt Rock.
And along the way, they want to collect some ahas, deep feels, and woo-woos. At sundown, they will put all of that into a completely original spell and create a new school of magic. Basically their own less jerky secret wizard society. Giuseppe, mind you, is kind of just sitting in the middle of all this, and nobody's really paying attention to him. The bus breaks down almost immediately, the wheels fall straight off, and they get chased out of a cow pasture. So Ice King makes an ice road to keep the trip moving. It's kind of a complete mess, which is exactly what you would expect from this group, but while they're stuck in the pasture, Abracadaniel tells everyone to write down arcane cryptic words in unexpected combinations, with the main idea being that they can use those lines in the spell for later. Most of the wizards write the kind of nonsense that you would make up if someone told you to sound deep on command, and Giuseppe writes too, and at first, even this is played like a joke. Little do notices the dirty old stranger is participating. Ron James gives him a pat, and the episode moves on. Then Ice King spots the crab apple tree, you know, from the title of the episode. Ice King tells Giuseppe to jump off the moving bus and grab the crab apples, and Giuseppe does it. He picks the fruit, throws it back to the group, and tries to catch up. But you know, he's an old man at this point, and he can't. Ice King looks behind the bus, realizes how far away he is, and says,
We have lost Giuseppe.
Then he just hands out the fruit and starts reading what Giuseppe wrote. Now this is the first time the episode stops treating Giuseppe like a bit. His poem is only 4 lines.
These are not my teardrops, daughter dear, but just the sheen of dew that lingers here, past other fields where other fathers lie, who kept their daughters better far than I.
While Ice King reads it, the art changes. We see a blue-skinned man in a pretty nice suit. We also see him with a young girl. Now, of course, the episode never states this directly, but we can pretty safely assume that this is Giuseppe and that is his daughter. And the poem is written from a father's point of view. He is speaking to his daughter and comparing himself to fathers who kept their daughters better. Now, this line is brutal because it's like he's saying that he failed her, that he wasn't a good father. We know this because we see an image of that same art style with daughters laying their father to rest. And it seems like whatever happened to Giuseppe and his daughter, it was the opposite. That Giuseppe's daughter ended up dying before Giuseppe himself. And then he carries this idea that a better father would have stopped it or wouldn't have allowed it to happen in the first place. So it seems like we have a fairly good backstory for this Giuseppe character, except we don't. Something else else had to have happened between that man, the one that we see in the flashback, versus the person that the Ice King found on the road. And my first thought was Simon Petrikov. As you know, Simon started as an ordinary human. Then the Mushroom War happens. He ends up finding an ice crown, loses his fiancée, starts losing his mind to the ice crown, finds a young Marceline, and keeping her alive becomes more important than what the crown is doing to him. In the episode Simon and Marcy, Marceline knows exactly what happens when he puts it on. She begs him not to use it because he is going to act weird again. Simon uses it anyway, and then he tells her that is the trade-off every time he puts on the crown. It gives him the power to keep them alive, but it takes another piece of Simon in return. His skin turns blue. His body changes. He has visions whether he is wearing the crown or not. He loses control of what he says and does. Eventually, after saving Marceline again, he looks at the girl he has been protecting and calls her Gunter. He knows he is slipping. In the notes that Marceline later finds, Simon writes that the magic is keeping him alive while making him crazy. He wants to save her, but he is terrified that there will be nobody left to save him. That kind of sounds like a possible beginning for Giuseppe. Maybe his daughter was in danger, and he found some kind of magic that gave him the power to protect her. He kept using it because he thought he had no choice, and the power slowly erased the father who started using it. But there's one problem though. Simon actually saved Marceline. The crown ruined his mind, but Marceline survived because he kept using it. And Giuseppe's poem sounds like it was written by a man who believes he did the opposite. Whatever he tried to do, his daughter was still gone. So maybe Giuseppe did not gain power and then fail to save her. Maybe losing her is what made him chase the power in the first place. And Giuseppe is quite powerful. In fact, we get a pretty good example of just how powerful Giuseppe is. And that's when the group of wizards, after leaving Giuseppe behind, they actually do end up reaching Big Butt Rock and throw all of their writing into a cauldron. Remember, this is supposed to be the big payoff to the trip. A bus full of magic users has collected its inspiration, and now they are about to create something completely new. Instead, the spell ends up smelling nice for whatever reason, knocks everyone unconscious, and sends the bus rolling into a lake. When they eventually wake up, the bus is sinking, and every solution that they try gets worse. The water nymphs try to lift it up and give up and actually abandon the wizards. Ice King suggests freezing everybody until someone discovers their preserved bodies, which he estimates, will only take about 200 years. Life-giving Magus brings the bus to life, but the bus immediately panics because it can't swim. Ron James drinks his last resort potion, and it swaps his head with tree trunks. So this group spent the whole episode trying to prove just how magical they were, and when they actually ended up needing magic, none of them can get the bus out. Then Abracadaniel chimes in.
Maybe this is a test from destiny, guys. If we all just surrender to these events, the answer will reveal itself.
The bus starts glowing blue. Giuseppe is back. He lifts the whole thing out of the water and sets it safely on land. And it's not even all that flashy. He kind of just does it. Ice King asks how, and Giuseppe just gives him a thumbs up. And technically, the wizards do get the aha, deep feel, and woo-woo they came looking for. They just ended up getting all three from Giuseppe instead of their spell. This is where the Simon comparison starts to feel a little incomplete. Simon's magic is visibly tied to the crown. Giuseppe doesn't appear to be borrowing power from anything. Whatever happened to him, the magic now looks like part of him. And that pushed me toward a much closer comparison. Magic Man. Magic Man also lost the person he loved most. His wife, Margles, was taken by Gold. He looked for her in every dimension, in every dead world he could reach. He even tried wishing her back in Prismo's time room, and it didn't work. Magic Man says she had been erased. For hundreds of years, she existed only in his memory and in the grief he was carrying. During that time, he kept developing his magic and science. Eventually, he became powerful enough to build the Margles defense system from his own nightmares. That already sounds a lot like Giuseppe. Magic Man loses Margles, can't accept that there's nothing he can do, and spends centuries getting stronger anyway. But the episode You Forgot Your Floaties gives us an even more direct connection. Betty studies Magic Man because she is trying to understand what happened to Simon. She sees the picture of Margles and tells him that something there connects who he is to his magic. Magic Man calls it a circuit of magic, madness, and sadness. Betty says that MMS runs through all magic users. She has studied scores of them, and they all show different amounts of those same three things. Of course, the show has never stated that sadness literally creates magic. It's a lot more messier than that. But with Magic Man, the grief and the magic clearly aren't separate. His grief over Margles ends up inside the thing he creates. He literally names the defense system after her. It has her face. He admits he made it after holding that sadness for hundreds of years until his magic and science were finally strong enough. Then, the ritual with Betty transfers his condition away from him. His sadness is gone, and so is his ability to use magic. He looks around, realizes he cannot turn Finn and Jake back, and says,
I think I'm just a normie now.
the magic and the sadness leave together. Now let's go back to Giuseppe. The clearest thing we know about his past is that his daughter is gone. By the end of the episode, his magic is obvious. He does what every other wizard on the bus failed to do, and he does it without any visible effort. And the one detailed thing he communicates is a poem about his daughter. He cannot tell the wizards who he is, but he can still write about what happened to her. The loss may be the last part of the original father that survived. So I think Magic Man gives us the stronger order of events. That the loss came first, and then the search for power came afterward. Maybe he wanted to bring her back. Maybe he wanted to make sure he can never fail anybody that way again. Either way, the power arrived too late to fix the thing that made him want it. But the forest scene suggests the transformation of Giuseppe still isn't over. Like I said, Giuseppe saves the bus and gives the group one last thumbs up. Then, his body comes apart into blue light. The light moves through the trees, and from above, it forms a huge image of his face. And then, one of the eyes winks at us. Abracadaniel asks,
What was he?
I don't know, Abracadaniel.
that is the question the episode wants us to leave with. And I understand why the easiest answer is that Giuseppe must have been some kind of forest spirit the whole time, because, you know, he kind of dissipates into the forest. But that doesn't satisfy me. Before this scene, the only connection he has to a tree is that Ice King told him to pick crab apples from one. We don't see him controlling plants or acting like a guardian of the forest. This form of light only appears after the body we have been following disappears. To me, that looks less like a secret identity being revealed and more like another stage of the transformation. And Betty gives us a precedent for that last step in the transformation. Betty begins as an ordinary human from Simon's time, his fiance. When she reaches Ooh and sees what the crown has done to him, saving Simon takes over her life. She studies magic, works with Magic Man, and eventually leaves their ritual carrying the magic and madness that had belonged to him. As she gets deeper into it, Betty starts losing the part of her life that has nothing to do with Simon. In the episode Temple of Mars, she looks at the person that she used to be and admits that she has spent so much time dedicated to him that she's not sure there is any of me left anymore. Then the finale takes the idea as far as it can go. Betty puts on the restored crown and wishes for the power to keep Simon safe. The crown doesn't just turn her into a stronger wizard, she literally merges with Gulp. Her human body is now gone. She becomes something far more powerful and completely different in form. But the wish that caused it still shapes what Gulp Betty does. Simon is saved because some part of Betty is still there. And that may be exactly what we're seeing with Giuseppe. His body disappeared, but the face in the trees makes it hard to believe he's completely gone. Something of him is still there. I think Giuseppe began as an ordinary father, and after losing his daughter, he went looking for the power he wished he had possessed. He may have tried to bring her back, or he may have spent the rest of his life making sure that he would never be powerless again. The pursuit worked in the worst possible way. He became unbelievably powerful, but the magic grew around the sadness that sent him searching for it. Over time, the magic, madness, and sadness stopped being separate parts of his life. They became Giuseppe. That would explain both his impossible power and why the poem is the clearest piece of his past he leaves behind. Simon gives us the beginning of that process, magic slowly erasing someone who uses it to protect a child. Magic Man connects that power to grief, and Betty shows how far the transformation can go. Giuseppe looks like all three stories compressed into one episode. The father became a wizard, the wizard became Giuseppe, and by the time the bus found him, almost everything was gone, except the magic, the madness, and the sadness that started it. And that's, in my opinion, Adventure Time's most tragic mystery, the story of Giuseppe.